You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio, man. We are here once again, and today we have another amazing show lined up for y'all. We're going to talk to our special guest, Scott DeLuzio. He is an Army veteran, a veteran advocate, a podcast host of an amazing show, Drive On, and he is also an author. So we're going to learn a little bit about him. And today's topic, we're going to dive into the importance of sharing your story. So first and foremost, Scott, thank you for your service and thank you for being on the show today, man.
Hey, thanks so much for that. And also thanks for having me on to share my story with you and your audience.
So, man, before we get into today's topic, man, share with the audience a little bit about your time being in military and what inspired you to be an advocate for veterans and also start your show, Drive On.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'll start with joining the military and what got me into that. Like a lot of us, I was moved by the events of 9/11. I was raised in a very patriotic family, and so seeing our country being attacked in the way that it just kind of really moved me. I was in college at the time, and I had considered just dropping out of college and joining the military straight from there. But I knew myself, and I knew if I was to do that, I'd never finish what I started as far as college goes. And I was already a couple of years in, and I figured, I'll stick it out. I'll finish that, and if there's still a fight to be had, I'll think about it at that point. So fast forward a couple of years, I'm out of college, and my younger brother, he actually joined the military before I did. He was going to college himself, and he met a guy who was in the National Guard, and he found out a little bit about it, and he said, this sounds like it's a thing for me. And so I started looking up to my younger brother, the guy who, we used to wrestle in the backyard and, beat each other up and all that kind of good stuff. Right. I was looking up to him like he's some sort of superhero for making this decision to join the military. And it was right around that time that I heard that the military was struggling to meet their recruiting numbers for that year. And that really got under my skin, kind of ticked me off. And I said, what happened to all these people right after 9/11 who were ready to literally move mountains and do whatever it took to take the fight to the enemy? Where are all these people? And then I realized that I was one of those people, and I still hadn't done anything. And so I said, well, I'm young enough, I'm fit enough, I'm perfectly capable of joining the military. So why not me? And that's really how I got into the military. That was the thought process anyways that was going into it. And then a little bit of me was saying, well, there's no way I'm going to let my little brother one-up me on this either. So, but yeah, so that got me into the military. And then my time in the military, I was deployed to Afghanistan in 2010, which is largely what my book, Surviving Son, is about. My younger brother and I both were deployed to Afghanistan. He unfortunately was tragically killed in Afghanistan while we were both there. And that experience certainly had a profound impact on my life and the trajectory of my life. And after coming home, I dealt with a lot of the issues that a lot of our veterans are facing, PTSD and things like that, and just not being able to cope with things in a very healthy way. So what I decided to do is eventually I got the help that I needed. But when I realized how many other veterans were out there who were struggling, just the unit that I served with, we lost more people after we all came home to suicide than we did while we were overseas. The company that I was serving with, we didn't lose a single soldier while we were overseas. And that was a place where literally people wanted to kill us. And we were coming home and we started losing people in a place where people literally want nothing but the best for us. And that just didn't sit right with me. And I wasn't willing to just sit around and wait for another phone call saying another friend took their life. And so that was a spark that created my podcast, Drive On Podcast, because I knew it wasn't just me. It wasn't just the guys that I served with. It's a wide ranging issue throughout the entire military and the veteran communities where people are just dealing with issues. And a lot of times the military culture is, just be a man, suck it up, deal with it, that kind of thing. And that's kind of the mindset that people had, especially back then. It's gotten better. But back then it was surely that type of mindset. And I said, well, that's obviously not working, because we have so many veterans. There's, the statistic, 22 veterans a day are taking their lives. And that's a huge number. Think about 22 people just anywhere. Just, you go to the gas station when all the pumps are full. There's probably 22 people there. Imagine all those people just being wiped out in a blink of an eye, right? By the end of the day, all those people are going to be gone. That puts it into a little bit of perspective, and it just isn't an okay thing for anybody. And so I wanted to do something to help. I wanted to put together resources that would give veterans some hope and let them know that even if you think you've tried all the therapies and all the resources that you think are available to you, there's still stuff out there that you probably haven't tried. And I also like to share stories of other veterans who have been in similar situations. They've dealt with PTSD, they've dealt with suicide attempts and homelessness and addictions and all those things that people are dealing with. And I talk about the success stories, about how these people dusted themselves off and picked themselves up and got on with their lives and found a better way to cope with the things that they're dealing with. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the whole point of the podcast is to give hope to those people who may feel like all hope is lost. And that's really what I'm trying to do with this podcast. And, even my book that I wrote about the experiences in Afghanistan, losing my brother, I'm not unique in that I've dealt with the grief of losing a loved one. So many people deal with that on a daily basis. And, I certainly didn't do that in a very healthy way. I didn't grieve properly for one reason or another. And I want to show people, hey, these are the mistakes I made, and this is what you can do to do it right, to do it better than I did it. So you don't have to make those same mistakes, so that you can. I don't want to use the phrase "move on" from this, because you never just forget about the grief or anything like that, but so that you don't let it control your life and make it a miserable experience to go through.
Once again, listen to I Am Refocused, talking to our special guest for today, Scott DeLuzio. And man, your podcast, Drive On, that's an amazing concept. I think that's something that I really want to promote the heck out of this, because I think it's a really just a great idea for someone like you who's been there and has done it, to create a platform for others to have a voice as well. And that ties into today's topic, the importance of sharing your story. And I went to your website, driveonpodcast.com, and man, are you busy? You seem to have an interview every other day. And
right.
What is some of the inspiring, if you chose one that came to your head recently of a guest who served in the military, an inspiring story that was shared on your show, what would that be? What story sticks out to you?
There's so many, and you're right. I have gotten busy. When I started off the podcast, this is a little over 3 years ago. The first 2 years or so, I did one episode a week, and I was like, okay, that's a good pace to keep, and I can handle that. But then I started getting so many people reaching out to me, and all of them had incredible stories that they wanted to share. Maybe they've written a book and they had it out there and they wanted to get the word out there about it. And I wanted to help all of these people get their stories out there, because, we're talking about the importance of sharing your story. And, your story, whether you think it's irrelevant, it's not that impressive, it's not that, whatever, it's not a grand story that's going to be a Hollywood blockbuster movie. It doesn't matter, because your story could just be the spark that someone needs to pick themselves up and get off the couch or get out of bed and move on with their life and say, you know what, this is the way I need to go. And so I wanted to share all of these stories. And so I doubled it, and I went up to 2 episodes a week now, and I've been doing that all year so far. And at this point, I'm more than able to keep that pace throughout the end of the year. And so I have so many episodes recorded already. I could probably increase that even if I wanted to. But as far as the stories go, the stories that to me are the ones that are the most inspirational are the ones where I see someone who was just at the rock bottom moments. There's one person I talked to the other day, and he just had the absolute worst experience. As a child, he lost both of his parents at a very young age. He got into drugs and alcohol and all this kind of stuff at a young age. Ended up joining the military. Got out of the military, and then his caregivers, his uncle and grandparents, they all died very shortly thereafter, and he felt like his whole world was crumbling down on him. And combining that with experiences that he had in the military, he felt like there's just nothing left for him. He didn't want to stay on this earth anymore, and he actually ended up surviving a suicide attempt. And after that suicide attempt, he came back and he was like, there is so much more to be done in this world. I'm clearly still here for a reason. I have a purpose. I have a mission. And I'm going to figure out what that mission is. There's a reason why God made me stay here and is not taking me back yet. And so he's made it his mission to help other veterans who were struggling with addictions and other things that he was dealing with. And this is 10 years later, maybe 20 years later. And he has a son. He has a steady job. He has, all these good things going for him. And to me, it's like hearing that story just gives you hope, saying that, this was the absolute worst situation this person could have been in. They didn't have family. They didn't have a structure around them. Everything seemed like it was just falling apart. But he kind of trusted the process and just kept going at it and played the hand that he was dealt. And he's playing it as best as he can. He doesn't have any, delusions that he's going to be this, multi-millionaire, super famous, anything. But what he's doing is he's focusing on this one day at a time, focusing on helping out as many people as he can. And, while people may not know him all around the world like they do celebrities and other people like that, the people who he's touching and who he's impacting with his message and his story and everything like that, I mean, that story just means the world to those people. And he's literally saving lives with his message and with the work that he does by helping these people. And so to me, there's all sorts of stories like that. I've done over 200 episodes, and I have so many stories of people who have inspired other people through the efforts that they made after hitting that rock bottom moment, when they felt like all hope was lost, when it seemed like there was nothing left good for them. They quote unquote saw the light, and they found a way to make the best out of a bad situation. And that to me is really what it's all about, because we all deal with bad situations in our lives. And when you can figure out a way to make the best of it, I mean, that's just the best thing, the best outcome that you can expect, right?
And I love what you said about his story, where he had to just trust the process. And that's very key, because when you zoom in into an opportunity, you either do that or you zoom in into the negativity of the distraction or the excuse of, oh, I just can't do this no more.
Right.
And I'm not saying excuse in a bad way, because I understand some situations can be very dramatic and severe. But I am saying, in the guy's case that you presented, he chose, even though he was at rock bottom, he chose to zoom in the opportunity to take one day at a time and to inspire as many people as he can with his story. And that's the fingerprint of our life. And I think that's a very inspirational thing to recognize.
It is, absolutely. And really, I mean, there's one thing guaranteed to us. I know there's that saying, there's death and taxes, but really, you're guaranteed a birth date, and you're guaranteed a date that you leave this earth. And what you do with the middle, that's up to you. Everything in that middle, you can choose to focus on the negatives. You could choose to focus on all the bad stuff that's ever happened to you. And like you said, making excuses for why the world is unfair to you and all this and that. But at the end of the day, none of that's going to matter. It's not going to change anything. And you can also choose to focus on the positives, and you can try to make the best of whatever the hand that you've been dealt is.
You've been listening to I Am Refocused Radio, talking to Scott DeLuzio. And man, someone listening right now, I mean, I feel inspired already, but someone listening right now, say they are a veteran themselves. And maybe they are just going through it. They're trying to keep their head clear, but it seems like it's just a cloud over their head. What would you say to that individual? They hear your voice, someone, a fellow veteran yourself. What words of encouragement would you say to that person?
Yeah, I look at it this way. No matter what you've had go on in your past, no matter how many bad days you've had, how much terrible stuff has been thrown at you, if you're here and you're listening to this right now, you've survived it already. You've survived all of that crap. And if I was to sit here and go read through a list of all that crap that you've lived through and said that this was about somebody else, and you were hearing that somebody else has gone through all of these things, you'd be like, man, that is a badass dude. And this guy can do anything. If he can do that stuff, he can do anything, right? And I say he, but I mean she too. I'm just picking on the guys right now, but literally, if that person could do it, anybody could do it. And then realize that what we're talking about is actually you. You've already gone through all of that stuff. You can do anything. If you've survived all that bad stuff already, I mean, there's nothing stopping you. And so don't quit. Better days are ahead. I mean, think about today. As long as today is not that worst day in your life, it's already gotten better. So it may not seem like it's all that much better, but take it one day at a time. As long as today is better than yesterday, you're moving in the right direction. Focus on that one day. Just get a little bit better every single day. And eventually you're going to get to a point where things are going good. Just focus on the positives, focus on what you need to do to get to that, whatever that goal is for you. Maybe it's a job, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's something else. Focus on what you need to do to get to that point and forget about all that bad stuff. Don't forget about it, because there's obviously lessons learned there, but don't focus so much on that. Focus on what you need to do to get ahead, and that will make the difference for you.
Man, this is some good stuff right here. Talking to our special guest for today, Scott DeLuzio, and the importance of sharing your story. And I want to just push on your podcast, driveonpodcast.com. You listen right now, you want to go to that website. I'll get it again, driveonpodcast.com, because on that website you have veterans resources that people can check out for veterans and their families. When someone who has not served, but they want to support military veterans, what is the proper and good way for them to be involved?
Look, there's so many things that you could do. There are just, I can't even count how many nonprofit organizations that are out there that do various things to help out veterans. I mean, if you don't have the time to go and volunteer with stuff, all of these organizations, I haven't talked to a single one yet who's like, oh no, we're good with money. Like we don't need any donations. Like you can certainly make a donation to any one of those, and that will help make a difference in a veteran's life, because a lot of these organizations are really driven by those donations. But if you can volunteer, if you have expertise in just about anything that you can offer to the veteran community, there's organizations that I know about, that I've talked to people about, that help with career transition. As people are getting out of the military, this is something that a lot of times civilians don't think about, but a lot of times when people get into the military at age 18, 19, whatever, early age at that point, they stay in for, let's say, 10, 15, 20 years. At the end of that 20 years, they're approaching 40 at that point. And they have never gone on a legit job interview, and they're almost 40 years old. They've never written a resume. They've never been in an interview. They don't know all of the things that go into applying for a job and all that kind of stuff that maybe you and I might take for granted because we've been doing this since we got out of high school or college or whatever the time period is. We've been doing this all these years, and we know what the process is. Maybe we're even the people who are sitting on the other end of the table and doing the hiring ourselves. So we know exactly what that process looks like. But for these people, this is brand new. This is as if they're just getting out of high school, not having a clue how to apply for a job. So if you are the type of person who knows how to write a good resume or can translate skills, let's say, from the military service into applicable civilian world skills, or even, hell, just be a mentor to these people. If your industry is looking for new, talented, fresh ideas, talented people, that type of thing, be a mentor to people who are getting out of the military. Make yourself available. Go out on LinkedIn. I'm sure there's people who are looking for people to help guide them in the right direction and really help them understand these new industries, because there's new language, there's terminology, there's different culture that they might need to understand that's completely different from the military. But if they go in not knowing any of this stuff, they're going to set themselves up for failure. I think on average, military veterans, their first job after the military, they only last about 2 years at those jobs on average, and some are much less. They only last a few months, because they just don't assimilate very well into that new culture. And so, if you can help people, guide them, show them the steps to get through not only just the interview, but the new career and all that kind of stuff, that's a huge help, because like I said, they're leaving the military really not having a clue what they're getting themselves into sometimes. And this could be a huge opportunity.
Once again, talking to our special guest, Scott DeLuzio, and on I'm Refocused Radio, talking about today's topic, importance of sharing your story. But like we just discussed, what you can do if you're listening, if you either are a military family or you know someone else who is in a military family or someone who is serving or has served, once again, go to driveonpodcast.com and check out his veterans resources. There's even a list of books that I'm going to check out. I'm going to look at maybe a couple and see if I can start reading on some of these books that you suggest on your list, because this is what this show is all about. People like you making a difference, but not just that, you're really helping people to equip themselves to live a life that will be inspiring, and it starts with the individual's mind to be made up. I'm going to give it a shot. And I think until we get to that point in our life where we say, I'm going to give it a shot, then we will end up spending most of our lives just not giving a shot and not trying to accomplish anything. It takes that moment when you say, okay, I'm all in, I'm going for it. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, That's absolutely right. I love how you put that. And when especially when you're talking about military veterans, um, the military veterans are unique in a way that they've overcome. Every single one of them have overcome some sort of challenge in their lives, that some uncomfortable thing that they had to go through, even just as early on in their career as basic training. I mean, that is not an easy thing. I mean, for people who haven't been through basic training, you've probably seen movies or videos or whatever with the drill sergeant screaming in your face and stuff like that, and they're crawling through mud and they're all this stuff that they're doing. None of that stuff is easy, but they've overcome all of that stuff. They did it. They figured it out and they did it, and they focused on accomplishing that task. And so let's take it now to any other difficult situation that you might have in your life, losing a job, or trying to find a new career, whatever the situation is. Focus on what you need to do to get that job done, to meet your goals, to hit those targets. Focus on it, and you could do damn near anything. And I love how you put that before too. And I think that's just something that these people need to keep in mind.
And I know we mentioned veterans a lot in this interview. And as we wind things down a little bit, I want to also not forget those who are interested and want to actually serve. Someone who has done that as yourself, what would you say to that person who has had that thought and they have that desire?
I think military service, it could go one of two ways. It could be the best thing you've ever done in your life, or it could be just a miserable experience. And I think you have to take a good, long, hard look at yourself and try to figure out what is your reason for wanting to serve in the military. A lot of times the people who I've interacted with who had a miserable time in the military, they were all in it for, let's just call it selfish reasons. They were in it because they wanted the college money, or they wanted, just a guaranteed paycheck or something like that. That's just what they were in it for. They weren't in it for, I don't want to say the right reasons, because those are good reasons to join the military, but they didn't see the bigger picture. Serving your country, serving something bigger than yourself. Whenever that is the goal, and it doesn't matter what the situation is. It doesn't have to be serving in the military. It could be volunteering at a homeless shelter or something like that. Whenever you're serving something that's bigger than yourself, you're not going to want to quit. You're not going to want to stop that, because you're not going to want to let those other people down, those people who are relying on you. You're talking about your country. If you're serving your country, I mean, I wouldn't want to be the guy who lets my country down, and like that would be a pretty crappy place to be. So, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that I don't quit, that I don't back down from, no matter how difficult the situation gets. I'm not backing down. I'm going to figure this out. And when you find that purpose and that reason, that you're basically unstoppable. But for those people who are considering joining the military, there's a lot of upsides, but just make sure that the reason that you're doing it is for the right reason, that you're doing something that's bigger than just yourself. You're not doing it just for your own maybe selfish desires or wants or anything like that.
We've been talking to our guest, Scott DeLuzio, and man, I want to say thank you for taking time your schedule talking to Army Focus Radio, not just about your story, not just about, the impact of your brother, not just about the podcast Drive On, but just everything that I hear screams genuine purpose. Because when a person knows their purpose, it's nothing to think about. They just go. It's like you don't even have to think about it. You don't be like, right. Oh, do I feel like doing? No, it's like you just said months ago, whether you feel like it or you don't feel like it, it's the bigger picture that keeps pushing you forward. So I want to say thank you for giving us your time to talk to our audience today on a topic I think is very important. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you so much. And again, thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity to talk to you and your audience about this topic. Sharing your story, I think, is incredibly important. And, I hats off to you for allowing me to share my story with you and the audience.
You visit the website driveonpodcast.com. Again, some amazing resources. Go to the tab where it says Veterans Resources and find lists of a lot of links and descriptions that you would do a great just opportunity to just take time to look that over. So highly recommend those listening, you head over to driveonpodcast.com. And once again, man, Scott DeLuzio, thank you for your time. And like we always say on Refocus Radio, keep God first, stay focused, and peace.